Welcome to What Lies Ahead. I'm your host, Chris Raffini, the lead singer of the Long Island band Overthrow. On my podcast, I explore everything related to the hardcore scene through the eyes of artists, promoters, and record labels. As always, please like and subscribe on all social media platforms. I'm excited to welcome Jay Reason, who was the frontman of Connecticut's Voice of Reason and The Distance. Jay's journey in music has spawned beyond performing. He's also worked with various record labels and even founded his own imprint, Static Era Records, which we'll absolutely talk about. His deep knowledge of the industry and his experience as both an artist and a label owner give him a unique perspective on how the music scene has evolved. We will talk about his musical history, his record store in Connecticut, and what the future holds. Jay, welcome to the show. What's going on, bud?
Man, Chris, that was such a good intro, brother. Thank you so much, dude. I want to, congratulate you on a couple of things. The podcast, amazing, dude. I'm so happy to see you doing this, dude. You and I have been friends for we're gonna date ourselves on this one a bunch, man. But Chris and I's friendship goes back a really long time, dude. So I'm super happy, man, to see you doing this. It's super awesome. And I am as you know, dude, we were just talking a little bit about this. I'm so excited to see the band doing stuff again. I had the pleasure of going out to see you guys. A little surprised I didn't tell you, but I hopped on the ferry and got to catch you guys at the AMH, at the new AMH, which is a beautiful place. And you guys sounded great, dude. And kids were singing along, and it was fucking awesome, dude, to see. Yeah, man. So I'm excited to be here, dude. I'm excited to. I'll probably end up asking you a bunch of questions, so I might even you might end up being interviewed on your own podcast a little bit.
So it's awesome to have you on. I think what I was telling you before. So when I'm excited to start this podcast, and we're about like 10, 11 episodes in. And you were for sure.
Yeah, you've had some great guests on, man. I've been keeping up, dude.
It's been fun, and you 100% a surprise because AMH is super dark. I'm in the back by the merch. And then I look up and I saw you there. That was awesome that you came.
Yeah, shout out to my boy Brog, Dan, who and Ryan Doust, who hit me up. I was telling you the story before, man. They were going out to the show, and Brog's like, "Oh, I'm gonna grab a ticket." And I saw you guys opening. I said, "Dude, please, can you grab me one too?" And he said, "Yeah, I got you, man." And we hopped on the ferry, dude. And like I was telling you, I probably should have timed to grab the one right before the one we got on. But yeah, we got there, man, like midway through your set. And it was sick, dude, just seeing it was cool too, because watching like young kids react to the songs. It wasn't just like old dudes, like it wasn't dudes like our age. Was really cool. And man, I got a shout out too that I'm sure you've mentioned it on your podcast, but you guys just did the vinyl reissue, which we have at our store. And dude, that thing looks, that thing looks beautiful, man. I got my copies were hand delivered by Mr. Race himself, so I felt really special. But yeah, dude, it's beautiful, man. The layout looks great. What's cool, and I think people don't understand this, dude, is like back in the day, like when your band and Voice of Reason had to do like layouts, it wasn't like we had this plethora of like softwares and filters and photos to pick from, or chat, Mid-Journey or like any of this shit, right? It was kind of like, yo, here's this photo, like here's this thing. And I think that you guys, especially with the way that John reimagined the packaging and stuff, it just looks super sick, man. So shout out to you and Race for just doing a really great job as a vinyl collector, man. I was really happy. And I gotta say, man, I was happy to buy it because you wanted to give me one, and I said, no, I'm buying that shit, man. So everybody make sure you support your friends who are doing stuff. I'm super happy to support you and Race, man, and whatever you guys are doing.
I appreciate that, and you did.
Oh yeah,
and, psyched to have you on here as well, man. So like, what I used to do is start with knowing you. I don't want to say 97, 96, 97 maybe.
It's been a long time, man.
It's been a minute and a long time.
And look at us. We both look same. We both look same.
No gray hair in me at all. So let's talk a little bit about, I know the story obviously, but I think it's important to hear your story, Chris. There's so much that from when we met that you've built upon since then, from music to your label to your record store. So talk a little about you remember first getting into the music. What led you getting into hardcore, getting into shows, and then from there you formed Voice of Reason, and then obviously In the Distance after. So talk about that.
I mean, dude, I gotta always shout out my brother John, my older brother John, who reluctantly did not want me hanging out with him, but reluctantly let me tag along to some of my first kind of shows. He had a band called Vision 12 that was like a local band here in Connecticut that did a lot of stuff. That played like Sports Palace and the teen centers around here and that whole thing. And I would go and, I was kind of more like I'd always loved music. Like music was definitely always my thing, but I was at that time probably leaning a little more into hip hop, which I think most of the kids my age were. Like if you were kind of like a pop culture, MTV person, which I am was. Um, and my brother took me to a couple of shows, and I remember seeing a band on stage at the Tune In, and I was like, shit, if that guy could do that, I was like, I think I could do that because I can't sing. I'm like, I kind of could jump around, and I liked Rage Against the Machine, and like I was like, all right, this could kind of work. And then, my brother was sporadically playing me bands, and what really drove it to me was like finding out that Zach from Rage had another band
Mm.
before Rage Against the Machine, right? So then like you end up going down this rabbit hole, which I don't think kids do as much now because everything is like just on the internet. But like you'd look at like the label logo and you'd look at like the thank you list. You're like, what band is that? What band's that? Um, and just kind of from there, man, it was just like, like I said, my brother would let me go with him to shows, and it was just like these things, man, just popping in my brain. I wasn't a good student in school. Like I was always getting in trouble and stuff. So it was like, it just seemed like everybody was getting in trouble. But it was like this, I just felt like I really fit in for the first time. I went to a school that was really big on sports and kind of all this shit that like, I was friends with everybody, but that just wasn't my thing, Chris, So, like again, dude, shout out to my brother for just like letting me be involved in what he was doing. And then, he actually too was the first person that introduced me to Mike Sabia, who ended up becoming like my main guitar player writer for Voice of Reason all through the band's career.
Yeah.
I had played in like little kind of cover bands and little like rap core kind of bands and that talent, kind of like teen center-ish type of bands before really meeting Mike and kind of developing a sound, for Voice of Reason, where it was like, okay, we're going to try to do this. He was really big into like kind of the punk rock, like West Coast thing. That's where the name Voice of Reason comes from, was from an Offspring song. The guy says, kill the president, Voice of Reason. And like, we heard that in the car. And we're like, all right, that's the name, like, so we just kind of like, it was a lot of like little learning blocks, dude, where I say now a lot of times, Chris, where it's like if you were a kid and you wanted to start a hardcore band, you could look back at like, dude, 40 years of 50 years of history almost, right? And like listen to like every record in a week through Spotify or YouTube and watch videos, and you could learn how to jump around on stage the right way and learn what to say and kind of this whole thing. Whereas like we didn't have that, like I had what was kind of available at my record store, things that people would turn me on to, very much had to kind of just learn stage presence on my own. There wasn't YouTube. You could buy VHS videos and stuff, but it wasn't the same, where now if you're like, man, I want to do something, man, you put 2 weeks of research into YouTube, Spotify, bro, you could have the access to the best moshes, best lyrics, you're made.
Yeah. So no, that's awesome, because like you always, I remember when we spoke, we're always interested in also the business sense of things as well. And always, even younger, you're always putting together shows, you're always doing stuff. And we connected, we did that split on Stillborn at the time.
Yeah. A lot of that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
Go.
I was just going to say, man, a lot of that, the kind of like that, that energy, I guess, man, was just seeing a lot of what was happening in my scene and trying to recreate it for myself. Shout out to like, to Jamie Josta for like what he was doing, and kind of like, I learned so much from him with like trading shows, which is again how I met you, and doing splits, which again, that's like you and I furthered our friendship and helped both of our bands grow on each other's scenes. Like, and a lot of that stuff, man, came out of just like watching people that I was like, oh my God, that dude's like a year older than me. Or like, because again, man, like you got to remember something, dude. Like I didn't even know that you could make your own CDs or like make a fanzine or like anything like that. So when I went to a hardcore show and saw kids with their own bands who had tapes and CDs and records, I was like, because again, dude, I was always a music guy. So I was like, holy shit. I'm like, you could just make your own shit. Like that was, dude, it was like I said, man, it was like, it's probably feels like what a kid who's really good at school when they get an A feels like. It was just like, my brain was like, holy shit. And then, too, man, just like I said, like learning the process, especially like with working with like Josta's label for so long, like it really helped me understand like, okay, this is what it takes to be in a band. It's not just the songs, like you got to do this, you got to do that. And then again, just like as technology and further things have grown, dude, like learning and understanding what those things are too, like, oh, okay, this is how you do that. This is how you make money doing this, blah, 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 blah. Like, man, that was just always interesting to me because as a dude, like, and somebody who still feels this way, I've always felt like an outsider. So I've always been the person who's like, man, how do you get in that club? Like, how do you get that seat at the table? Like I do very much feel every day of my life like an outsider, even when I'm like around people that I know I'm friends with, who just do big shit. That I'm just like, what the like, what am I doing here, kind of thing,
Yeah, it's cool. So I remember like with Voice of Reason quickly too, like
Yep.
you guys, we did the split, then you ended up doing the full length on Triple Crown, which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like one of those records. That's a really good record.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
and you did a little tour. I remember you do a little with like
Yeah,
Gladys
we did.
Shelter.
It's
Like you
yeah,
guys you did a lot of stuff.
yeah. It's funny that you talk about that because I was just telling this story today, man. For a band that we broke up like right in 2000, I think, or like maybe at the end, or yeah, I think
A
right at
little
the end
after
of
the
two.
record almost, right?
Yeah, I think right at the end of like I think I want to say, dude, right at the mid 2000. The record comes out in '99, I think, like in June or May or September, something like that. And then yeah, like end of 2000, we're just kind of like trying to like do some stuff. But I just want to go back to the beginning of Voice of Reason because one of the coolest experiences, man, with Voice of Reason, um, that I still look back at, man, as like I'm so glad that we did this and I pushed us to do it. And this is just some like advice for like, like younger bands and stuff, like to just kind of always have like your ears and opportunities kind of tuned into things because, again, man, I always was like, yeah, maybe we'll tour or whatever, but it was always interesting to me to see how shit worked, right? So I would, again, going back to that Inside Out record, dude, I see that Revelation Records logo and the next record I get's Gorilla Biscuits, New
Hmm.
Direction, right? And that's produced by Don Fury. And then that's a name that, dude, I just start seeing that name on like every fucking record, right? And so Voice of Reason is kind of coming into becoming Voice of Reason. We actually hadn't have the name yet, but me and Mike Sabia are writing some songs. We get like a real drummer who's like he comes from learning like a Minor Threat and the Misfits, so he's like punk rock. This is like the first time we're finding like kids in our scene that kind of listen to similar stuff. Because a lot of like the local where I come from was like doing like garage, like Weezer was big, so a lot of like that grungy type of shit. Nobody was doing like hardcore, especially like fast hardcore. So we like get together, we're writing and we're demoing some tracks at like some local studios, and a couple of those tracks exist as tracks on like little comps here and there or whatever. But Chris, I started seeing Don Fury's name on just every
Yeah.
record. And I'm like, I gotta have him record. And dude, again, this is like how ignorant I am that I didn't even realize how big he was, that he had literally just finished doing Civ, Can't Wait 1 Minute More. He just finished doing like fucking Biohazard or Quicksand or Helmet or whatever, like all these crazy records, right? But I didn't know that, dude. Again, I'm 16, 17, and that I think I'm 17 because my dad actually drove us to the studio.
Yeah.
But so, dude, I worked at Strawberries, which was a record chain. I don't know if they had them back in Long Island at the time, but it was owned by like Peaches and Coconuts, all that kind of shit, right? I swear, guys, this story has a point. I don't mean to make it take so long, but so like I'm working, and I at the time long distance, which kids don't know what the fuck that is, but you used to have to pay to call. Chris, I'm sure you remember. So California phone calls were not cheap, So I call from Strawberries. I call the number for Revelation Records, and literally like I think I maybe just called 411 in California and was like Revelation Records, and they were like, oh, here's a number. I call. I don't know who picks up the phone, and do it again. Just this is how like ignorant or naive I am to the whole thing. I just was like, hey, I'm like, my name's Jay. I was like, I'm trying to get a phone number for Don Fury to record. And they were like, oh, hang on. They literally just said like, hang on. And then they gave me his phone number. So dude, I
First
fucking
call.
call.
Which is,
Yeah.
think about that. Like first call.
Yeah. Like, dude. And again,
And you're
like,
probably like, okay, this is how it always is. You're 16, 17 years old,
yeah. And it's funny because like I tell kids who are like 16, 17 now who come in the shop that I do this, they're like, you just call. Like, I just was always, man, like, what do I have to lose? They're either going to not pick up. They're going to say no.
Great way
like,
to look at it, honestly.
I mean, bro, like, you know what I mean? Like, what, like, what's the worst that could happen? Right.
No, right?
So, what's that?
Right. He says no. I mean,
Yeah, he says no, or he
what's the
never
big deal?
called back or whatever. Right. So But yo, luckily for me, so I leave a message and I'm like, I think I just said like, hey, my name's Jay. I got this band. And we didn't have Voice of Reason at the time. I don't remember if we were going kind of by links, Linx, even though we weren't straight edge. I don't know the logic there, but I don't know what was going on, whatever. And so yo, I just leave this dude a message. And then a couple days later, my mom, I come home from work, and my mom's like, hey, this guy Don called for you. And I was like, oh no shit. So I call him, and dude, keep in mind that like Chris, it's again 1997. So he calls back, he's like, yeah, man, I'll do it $1,000, which might as well be. And we were like kids. But dude, can I tell you, man, that like to credit to everybody in Voice of Reason, we each saved $250 to make this happen. And that's how we did it. And my dad drove us because none of us had our license, let alone could bring gear or something on the highway to New York. And then that just started this whole relationship with Don Fury that like, honestly, like Voice of Reason recorded pretty much everything with him except for a couple things that came out. But most of our recorded output was with Don. We had such a great relationship. And it was at the Spring Street studio where they did all those records. And again, man, just being a kid and like not at the time, not knowing how important that is. And now looking back, like, wow, 30 years later, like, I can't believe we hung with Don. And like, he did a retrospective thing on his Facebook thing and he mentioned us and just hearing our name with all these crazy records. It was one of those things I was like, man, I'm so glad that I pushed us to do that. Actually, and then we ended up going back to Don's the second time to record our side of the split that we used for you guys.
Right.
And that was my first, Josta like produced that stuff with us. He came to the studio, and I have a ton of pictures with him and us like really young, outside of that studio with some friends of mine and stuff. And it was just, dude, such a magical time that like, again, I look back at that being like, wow, for these young kids. Cause dude, even right now, $1,000 is a lot of money. So imagine back then, and I have the receipts, like I'll have to send you the pictures, but it's like, I was so proud of us, man, because whether I knew it or not, I always knew that shit like that mattered. Maybe I didn't at the time, but representing and how you put your product out and as a band, dude, sometimes it's better to wait so you can put out the Don Fury demo versus like 20 bad demos, right? So it's like we got a lot of hate when we came out in Connecticut. A lot of the older dudes were so mad at us because we recorded with Don Fury and we didn't really understand why. And they were just like, oh, they're these rich kids or whatever, but it wasn't. It was like, dude, they knew how many hours that we worked and did all our stuff to get it. And over the years, as those people have gotten to know me, they understood like what it was about. But the first couple, I'd say like the first 6 months of like being on that demo, dude, a lot of kids that were like, they kind of didn't like us, you know what I mean? And then like, again, became friends with Joss. Then we just started trading shows and getting on more stuff. And it was just like, we got a lot of haters until we got a lot of love,
Mm-hmm. Which always, it unfortunately always starts that way. But that demo ripped, man. That was good. I remember
Thank you.
You like, I think traded it in mail because that's how it was. Like,
yeah, I mean,
there was no Spotify back then, so we would I'd mail you a demo or a 7-inch. You mailed me your stuff, and then one thing led to another. We did the split, which was great, and then
it's funny because I don't to me, Voice of Reason, like it hasn't aged well. I think it's like it's fun to listen to sometimes for its own like little thing, but I don't like when people listen to it for whatever reason because it just, again, like it's such a window of time of like a kid who just like learning like about the scene and learning how to write, and it's like again, dude, I never when we started a band was like, okay, my first band is going to get signed, my first this is going to be out in front of everybody, right? It's just that's how it happened. Whereas like now, again, if you and I were like, hey, Chris, we're going to go start it, and we can go 30 years back and be like, okay, here's this mosh part, this riff, right? Like Voice of Reason was so much of just being like, okay, I think this is what works. We like stuff on Epitaph. We like, it was like this melting pot of stuff. And it's cool for what it is. But like, I think when I got into like doing the distance, that was really like the vision of like, okay, this is going to be this, you know what I mean? So Voice of Reason was very much like training wheels, but just like, kind of like training wheels with everybody watching you, if that makes sense, because we were, not that we were like big or whatever, but we were on Triple Crown. We did Only the Strong comp on Victory, which put a lot of attention on us. A little like unknown fact was that like the record that we were going to do on Triple Crown would almost ended up being signed there. But that's a story like we'll have to save for another time. But like, yeah, we would have almost ended up at there just because of the connections with the comp and a couple other things that were happening at the time. But yeah, man, Voice of Reason was a lot of fun. And like, we never toured out to like the West Coast, but we went down to just about Florida and back. And like, yo, we did like, dude, we did runs with like Newfound Glory and Saves the Day,
Yeah,
like
it's amazing.
opened like a bunch of
Yeah.
shows that dude, we toured with Blood for Blood, a bunch. We toured with that one was Blood for Blood and Cause for Alarm. Um, we did like a bunch of other shit. I'm drawing a blank. Like we did Super Bowl Hardcore in
You went out with
DC.
Shelter too.
Oh yeah,
Right?
we went. Yeah, oh yeah, dude, that was. How am I gonna forget about Beck? Yeah, so like, dude, we did Shelter and Glassjaw tour, which was sick. We did like a, and again, for us, we did like 5 days on that, which for us was like might as well have been a month. It was the
Of
coolest
course.
thing. We were still young. We were probably like 20, probably like, yeah, like 20, getting to be. I don't think we could buy alcohol yet, so I want to say like probably right about 20. So again, dude, we're just like kind of like growing into this shit a little bit. And you're watching these other bands, who are doing something similar, but then doing it better. And you're like, okay, I want to try to do that. But it's like, then all the attention's on you. You're selling out. You're doing these different things. So it's like, it was kind of weird. I think at the end when Voice of Reason was like kind of about to wrap it up, it was so far away from what it should have been. We changed a member and then he came back and it was just, you know how it is, Chris. You're in a band. The dynamic,
It felt like it was time. You
yeah,
know,
once the dynamic is off, and like again, dude, I was working a lot with Joss, and he was just like, he wanted me to. He was like, "Oh, do another band right away." And originally, dude, me and Wes from Death Threat were like, we definitely weren't texting at the time because text wasn't a thing. I probably just saw him, or I probably called him on the phone, because he wasn't doing Death Threat yet or anything. So, Joss was like, call Wes, like, but that it just didn't happen. And then, like around 2002 or maybe like, yeah, end of '01 is when the Distance kind of starts. And that was very much like a very like, okay, dude, I'm gonna do this. I want to tour. I want to tour this much. I want to do like I again, dude, like whereas like Voice of Reason was limited to like me and friendships, the Distance was all about like, again, do I think until I got like what I consider like the real lineup of the band, probably went through like 12 different people just because the amount of like shows that I had booked and tours. Cause again, dude, I wanted to do it at a level that, our friends and peers were doing it, dude. I didn't want to sit at home and I felt like, there wasn't going to be opportunities if I didn't go out and try to create those for myself, man. So I really
right.
just had a vision for that shit. And dude, working with Jocelyn's label too, seeing again opportunities that like, okay, if this band is doing this, I'm sure I can replicate it and do my own thing. I never used like anything like that. I always kept the Distance very separate from like the label stuff because I didn't want people to say like, oh, that could have been mine and you gave it to yourself kind of thing. So I was made sure like super conscious to keep those separate. But yeah, man, there was just so much stuff and energy happening around the Hatebreed camp and that whole thing that it was kind of hard not to just be like, all right, let me just do a fucking band too and see what happens.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So like you guys end like the Voice of Reason ends. You were talking a little bit about the Distance. How far along was that? Like a little bit after? Was it
Probably
a
like
year?
I would say like two. I would say probably about like yeah. I think because like the EP comes out in like the beginning. I feel like the EP comes out in like, well, all right, hold on. I feel like the demo is like '01, so it's probably about a year and change, before I get it going. Um, and the initial lineup was like I don't even dude, like I can't even remember like how I even fucking got introduced to like the dude who played guitar on the EP or anything. Like it just was like, yeah, I do. I really like, I wish I could remember, but I just remember rapidly going through, Chris, like no joke, like 2, 3, 4 guitar players. Cause everybody's down to be in a band until you're like, okay, dude, I just booked us 4 weekends in a row. We're leaving
Yeah.
Thursday. And because dude, that's how I wanted to play. Like we were playing, like, dude, we went and toured Canada on our, like we were doing all kinds of shit. Like, shout out to Outbreak, who's a band I feel like doesn't get enough like recognition now, but they were a big part of like really like kicking us into gear. Like Ryan, the singer from Outbreak, and I do a reissue label called War God
Mhm.
together. But we met actually. He did a website called xryanx.com, and I had my site called jasonalex.com, and we just like exchanged. And he had a band. I said, oh, yo, if you want to play Connecticut, and he's like, oh, if you want to do Maine, and then the next thing I knew, we booked like a weekend, and then we're doing Canada together, and it's just like I just saw all of these bands, man, doing these things, and I was like, I want to fucking do that. Like I was
Yeah.
like, fuck this.
Hmm.
So it's probably like, yeah, like it's about a year before, and then we go and do the demo at Dean Valtonis's studio when he was still in Brooklyn at Atomic, excuse me, where they did like No Warning, Ill Blood, and like all these fucking rad records. So we did our demo there, which was sick. Working with Dean was awesome. Tom Sheehan from Indecision, Most Precious Blood, Axe to Grind, shout out, sang on the demo, which
Mm.
was just cool. Again, I just kind of had this vision of like, okay, I love the way Dean's stuff sounds. I want to go there. Like, okay, Tom's my boy. I want. And I didn't know Tom like I know him now. Like we casually knew each other from Voice of Reason playing shows with Indecision and stuff. And I just kind of said, I was like, hey man, I love your voice. Like you come down, do like sing on the demo. And dude, shout out to him. Like he came out to Brooklyn and he did it for me. And it was just like, it was so awesome, you know? And then from there, you know, Chris, it was just like, okay, man, how fast can we
There you
play?
go. Yeah.
Like literally, dude, the distance was a shirt before it was a band. Like I remember making shirts with like the logo. Like I had somebody draw a logo. I didn't even have members, and we sold you know, I sold them at like a show, and I was like, oh, it's coming soon, you know?
Cool. That's awesome. So you played a lot. How long did that go for about?
Man, the distance goes for a really long time. It's funny because like, you know, unfortunately, like the label that we released the album on, which was part of like Century Media, like they have like no, they're not ingrained in any kind of history with anyone's brain. But they had Us, Ignite, Sick, but all some really cool bands. Those records are out on Century Media, and ours, we got the rights back, and you can stream that and stuff. But like, um, the distance goes from like I'd say about 2001 to about 2008. So
Hmm.
like a really long time, dude. And that's I, I would say about 5 of those years are as a full time like band. Like we did Europe, you know, Europe, we Canada all the time, like, you know, albums, touring. I mean, dude, like, you know, the year the album came out, we did over 100 shows for sure. I'm a
Wow.
little vague on the number, but I know it's over 100. We've done the count. I just can't remember. I don't want to say the wrong number, but it's definitely over 100. The year that record came out in '06. And then again, man, it's like, you know, it's like anything else where I sometimes I feel like, okay, if that record would come out in a scene like today where kids are so open to listening to stuff and there's records that are so varied, I feel like we would have been more accepted. But at the time, you know, that was like really taboo and kids were mad at us and this, that, the third. But, you know, I always say is like, here's the thing, man, we got an opportunity to do something. Am I gonna go make the same record? You know, like there's nothing wrong with the record that we did on Bridge 9 or whatever. And I think that like, you know, sometimes I do kind of wonder like, okay, what would it have been like if we would have stuck on that path? Because we were doing very well on that path with like, you know, our
Mm.
peers, you know, we toured all the time with, you know, Comeback Kid, Terror, Champion, with Honor, you know, and all those bands of that era, you know, that were popping off that still do well now and release records, you know. Um, but you know, dude, I love the record we did, and it's like this kind of thing where it's like we got to work with this amazing producer Shep Goodman and this other amazing producer Kenny Gioia, who did like, you know, Shep has become one of my like really good friends over the years. You know, dude, and we just had all these opportunities, man, to work with people that like it just would never have happened. And I think like a lot of the stuff, again, going back to my like original journey, man, like how does this work? How do you get involved in all this, dude? It was like, yo, here's this door to like learn about everything you've ever wanted to know about. You know what I mean? Like, and I tell everybody, man, I make the same fucking record again. Like I like that record that we did. Like I know it's kind of taboo to be like, yo, I like my records, but that record to me, and then I did a band right after that called Blackened with BD. It was all the Hatebreed guys, and I sang on that.
Yeah.
And that those two records to me are like my two. Like when someone's like, "Yo, I want," if somebody was like, "Yo, I want to hear your band," and they were like, "I like heavy shit," I play in Blackened. They like more. I think the distance kind of. I don't even know what the fuck the distance fell into towards the end, but if they like that, I play them that because those two just feel so like I was just so in my zone, dude, playing so many shows around the right people, around the right everybody. That those two records are just like they capture this perfect moment to me of like, okay, like years from now, I'll be able to happily look back at those records. And it's funny, man, because you know, I was telling you offline, like we played the Distance hadn't played a show in 15 or 16 years. And we played the again in 2022 with there was this cool venue I was telling you about in New Haven called the State House that's since closed. But we got together, me and Ezak, and we did Awesome Crown of Thorns there. And dude, we sold it out and it was cool. And we reissued it on record on vinyl, just like you guys did. And it's funny how close to 20 years later, man, this record has kind of found a life with people and people understand where we were coming from. And like, dude, yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, yeah, thank you, man. I'm super proud of it. And again, I'm proud of how much work and dedication, because like a lot of that stuff was hard to do, man, for somebody like me who really couldn't sing, who like isn't the best writer, like, you know what I mean? And to really have to work to be able to do that shit live and then still be able to do it now is like, man, I feel like I'm proud of like young Jay Reason, you know what I mean? Like, cause that was a weird time for me, especially like I think it shows in the record, I was going through a lot of shit, and it's like, it's one of those things like, yeah, maybe I would change some of the lyrical content to make it a little more vague and not on the nose so much. But man, when I hear that record, I'm just like, man, that's a dude who's just fucking, he don't know he doesn't know where he's at. You know what I mean? And I'm proud of like where we've come from there.
Yeah, no, that's a great record, and it's awesome that you can look back on that
Thank you.
and feel that way. And
Yeah,
for me,
thank
it's
you,
like
man.
always to the next part of this conversation. You always were interested in helping out behind the scenes, even back when we would talk. I remember talking to you at work. I used to work at LIU posting the housing.
Yeah, I remember. Oh yeah, dude, that was
talk
the
to
best.
you. Phone would be ringing. I'm like, nah, we're on
Yep.
the phone. Like I wouldn't even pick up. I would get in trouble for that. But like we'd be talking. But like you were always interested in behind the scenes, the entrepreneurial aspect of it. But again, with helping people. So you started working with Jamie through Stillborn. And
Yeah,
then how did that build leading into Static Era, what you have right now?
man, it's a very crazy road. But to just your initial point, man, what I want to say, and I always try to make sure I acknowledge this, dude. Like the reason I help so many people, dude, even people that I probably shouldn't help sometimes, is because Chris, so many people help me, dude. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. Like dude, again, I'm not some fucking millionaire or whatever, but I've done very well, and that is just because so many people helped and so many people supported and so many people had my back, man. So, dude, like if somebody needs fucking 5 minutes of my time, dude, or dude, a friend of mine like you is doing something cool and I want to be involved in that, dude, like I'm gonna make sure I'm involved in that, and I'm gonna make sure I'm telling everybody that I'm involved, and I'm making sure that so and so knows this, or like I'm making sure that like I'm helping connect as many dots as possible, because dude, one day I might need that favor back. And I feel like, especially like us coming from a scene, I was just saying this to shout out to Austin, who works at the store with me. I always kind of joke that it's more his store than mine because he does such a great job at running the place. But like, it's like, dude, I try not to fuck with too many people that don't come from like a scene, because it's like, dudes like us kind of understand. It's like, yo, man, I got your back, dude, 100%. And like, if you need something, I got you. But there's so many people, dude, that we do stuff for that you like, that don't kind of come from our world. And then you ask them back for that favor. Not that we do things because you want something back, but you get where I'm going with this. And it's like, they're like, oh, what do you talk? I can't tell you how I did that. And it's like, dude, you can't tell me how you got X, but I just gave you an hour's worth of free information on how to get your record done or connect you with this person or that. But you don't got 5 fucking minutes for me. Like, dude, I don't want to put people on blast, because that's just like not my vibe on this podcast today. But, dude, there's artists on my label, that, are legends in this scene, dude, especially Long Island. Right. And, dude, I'm trying to champion this dude's, new stuff. And it's like, yo, it's crazy to me sometimes how people won't give the love to somebody, but then like 5 seconds later, they're praising his much more known band. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh yeah, I fucking love, and I'm like, dude, me and him talk about all the time. But again, dude, it's just like, I don't keep no secrets, dude. If somebody fucking wants to know how something works, DM me, email me. Chris, you know this. I always been like that, dude. To me, there's no secrets, because
100%.
it's just, it makes it harder for fucking everybody, dude. We don't all want the same shit. So I'm happy to help you, because, dude, again, even if we do want the same shit, the pie is big enough for fucking everybody, dude. You know what I'm saying? So like, I've never felt like that, so kind of going into to what you had asked, man, was, so my first like quote unquote signing to Joss's label was a band called Right Brigade. And
yeah.
dude, so me and Josta do the Voice Reason Overthrow split, and I just love the process, man. I remember getting like just the CDs first, and we didn't have the covers yet, remember? So we had to fold the covers, and we made like the white photocopied covers of the, yeah, remember? So like, dude, just like all of these things of like, again, man, seeing your music that you recorded become this thing, like this real thing, whether it was a 7-inch or a CD, dude, to me was, I mean, Chris, even today when we get releases from Static Era, man, I open them like a fuck. It's just, that's the best feeling, dude. So, I had known Jesse and the Right Brigade, guys, they had fast break guys in there and stuff. And, Stillborn at that time, I think was still mostly like heavier, tending to be like a more heavier label. But Jesse was like one of our boys. He obviously was, friends with Justin, knew everybody, and the demo was so good. So I brought it to Justin. I was like, hey man, I was like, yo, we should put this out on vinyl. And he's like, all right, ask them if they'll do it. Like, that's literally just all he said. Like, and again, I think a lot of my attitude comes from mentors like Josta, just being like, yeah, just like, why, almost like, why wouldn't you ask somebody? Why wouldn't you do this? Like, the worst they're going to say is no. So why wouldn't you just ask? So I remember calling Jesse and I was like, yo, let's do the Right Brigade on 7-inch. And he was like, all right, cool. And it was just like that. And then the next thing I knew, I'm going up to Josta's with, shout out to my boy Yvonne. Me and him are going up and we're packing Hatebreed Integrity. We're packing Hatebreed Integrity records. We're going to UPS. We're going to ship stuff. And again, dude, a lot of that shit that I learned back then is stuff I use every day in my fucking life, dude, every day. It's how I know how to fill out a customs form. It's how I know which service is the best to use. Like it's so funny how, again, I wasn't trying to learn postage or shipping or any of that shit, right? But, I just was surrounded by so many good mentors, man, that were very generous with their time. And again, just let me be around, dude, and kind of learn how all this shit works. So, I'm helping Josta for a couple of years here and there. And then I'm thinking it was probably right around maybe like in 02 or 03. I'm trying to think if it was before or after. Perseverance comes out. Hatebreed Perseverance comes out in 02.
Mm-hmm.
It must be like right before this. I tell Josta, like me and a friend of mine at the time, we're starting like a design kind of graphic design company. So I'm telling Josta, hey, we're gonna do this and we're gonna get this little office spot. Like, what do you think about just putting like some stillborn stuff in here and like kind of like combine it? And Josta, just being the entrepreneur, was like, yo, let me get you guys some clients and like, we'll do this stuff. So like, dude, we worked on like Biohazard. It was called Devastation Media. So you'll see it credited. It's actually it's how I'm credited in the layout for Rise of Brutality, Hatebreed. So I did that layout, but it's credited as something else, because everybody at that time, as was using names and shit, whatever. So dude, that's just like a whole thing that of a whole nother era of stuff I don't talk about. But yeah, man, we did a bunch of stuff. So I had gotten us this little office space that first was on Ocean Avenue, that was in the same plaza as my mom's hair salon is still in. She actually got us the office. I think we were paying maybe $300 or something. It was crazy cheap. We outgrew that space very fast, and then we ended up getting a spot on Campbell Avenue, which I think maybe that's, I don't know if, no, we didn't. No, you weren't playing anymore at then. It wasn't near there, but that was like right in that. It's like right after that era, but. Yeah, dude, we had so many bands come through that office. It was cool. It was like on a second floor, and it had like a dedicated mail room, and me and Josta had our desks there and stuff. And then, I pretty much stay working with him up until I would say like the end of 06. Like Josta's, is a executive producer on the Distance record. Super instrumental to like success, like getting us to Europe and just tours, and really just, again, man, I was really lucky to be around so many wonderful people. But like, I ended up kind of just leaving doing the label because I felt like I really wanted to do more of the band stuff. We were touring so much more. I wasn't really there as much. And I was like, fuck, man, I just felt like it was time to just do something else, So we go and release the record. We're touring. Obviously, everyone knows, like, as I mentioned before, the record didn't do what I would want it to do. We obviously did. We went for a home run and kind of missed, in the industry's eyes, so to speak. But it was a great record. If everybody feels like listening to it, it's on streaming. It's called The Distance, The Rise, The Fall, and everything in between. But yeah, like we had Bert from The Used sang on it right at the height of like their popular. Yeah. So like we really went for it, man. Cool. And we toured like motherfuckers, man. We did everything we had. We actually even brought Mike Sabia from Voice of Reason, back in as a touring guitar player when we went to Europe and stuff. It's just, it's like, we were really like, we're really going for it. And then, dude, the record, doesn't do what it's supposed to do. We do a second set of demos that were produced by Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC. So he was going to come on board. Shout out to Chris because he's still a homie of mine and I love him. But he was actually going to come on board and produce what would have been like the second record. So I have like a bunch of cool stuff and outtakes and stuff from sessions with him. But yeah, I mean, it's just like it had felt like the other guys had felt burnt out. I was like, I didn't really know what to do. And again, dude, I'm on so much momentum. I'm like, dude, I have no job. I have nothing else. I've toured for and done labels for years. I'm like, I have nothing. So I quickly kind of just like fuck trying to figure something out. And then shout out to Chris Legg, who he played in the Distance. He was one of my members. And rest in peace, Chris Legg. He passed away. He was one of my best fucking friends, man. Like he was just, he kind of was like a brother in a lot of ways, man. He played in the Distance early on. He was like my roommate and shit. Like he was just a fucking awesome human being, man. I miss him every day. So shout out to him. But he had the idea for Blackened. So he was like, I remember he called me and was like, yo, he's like, I got this idea. And it was Blackened is his version of Full Blown Chaos, Wake the Demons. So if anybody knows that, he was like obsessed with that album. And he's like, yo, I want to just do a record like Wake the Demons and da-da-da. He's like, but you got to sing and we got to keep it hard though. Cause he's like, he knew I was, Distance at that point was like pretty much full singing and stuff. So he was like, we just got to keep it hard, And then dude, we shout out, we got Beatty from Hatebreed. And then we got Dave Russo, who was the first Hatebreed drummer, like all my homies. And then like Wayne was in before he joins Hatebreed, and Larry, the original guy. Like it was just so much fun to record that record with Zeus. We play a handful of shows. I wish we could have done more, but the Hatebreed machine is such a machine that it's hard to do anything. And I was like, yo, if I can't play with Beatty all the time, because the fun thing of doing that band was that you're playing with like Beatty, you're playing with your friends. So I was like, if we can't do it, we could never get that off the ground. And then dude, so like, I think at that point I turned like 30 years old and I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do with myself? Cause I'm like, record hadn't done anything. Blackened could only really do what it's going to do. So I got like a small job, dude, like, working on internet shit, like websites and stuff. I'm sorry if this is boring, Chris, please like interrupt me if I'm like babbling.
The story's important. And the reason why it is, Jay, is because people listen to this, and people interested in labels or interested in starting stuff. And
I'm getting to
doesn't start. There's stuff that's involved with it. So no.
And I have a point to this. I promise, guys, I'm getting to it. So like, anyways, I temporarily find this like job working on basically like content management systems. Think of like WordPress, but it was for radio stations. Friends of mine worked there. They were like, dude, look, we can get you in. I had my GED. I hadn't fucking worked. I mean, I literally, dude, I had nothing to offer, but my friends, shout out to Brett, got me in there, dude. And so, I'm there for a little while and then I start looking online and I see a bunch of openings at Sony in New York. And dude, on a whim, I just was like, let me just apply. And it's much harder now, but my first round at Sony, dude, I worked there twice. The first time was at Sony Music for Jive. I just applied online and, it was for like, I forget what they call it. It was basically like you build like their landing pages and shit, like, work on like media campaigns and some social media campaigns. This was when like MySpace and Facebook was just kind of starting out. MySpace was still like the big thing. So, that must be like 06, 05, no, probably later. So 08, 09, something like that. I'm sorry, Chris, my dates get a little mushy there, but so I end up working at, I send my resume through and I get a call back. And luckily, dude, the guy who shout out to Dave Bell, who he works at Epic, man. He was the manager at Jive. He was like the main guy, the digital. And we just like on the interview, I just was like, I walked in and he was like, you don't have a lot going on. And I just kind of pled my case. I was like, look, dude, I've done all this stuff. I was like, I'm in a band. I did blah, 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 blah. And like, yo, shout out to him. He just like gave me a shot. He was like, all right, you know what? Fuck it. He's like, can you build? He gave me this like assignment. He's like, can you build this in 24 hours? And it was like a landing page. I was like, no problem. So I fucking built it. And just because of that, he was like, all right, dude. He's like, I'll give you a shot. So he's like the first dude, that gave me my shot at the door. So I ended up working at Jive for a little while, which was like Britney Spears, like a big pop label. It's not around anymore. But I worked there till they pretty much closed the doors. They laid off everybody in that division. That's the one thing that sucks working at majors is like, it's a very quick kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like, again, my going back to what I had told you, man, just like paying attention to everything going on, I was able to like rope all of my hardcore knowledge, dude, with nothing into a job at Sony, because I was able to tell this guy, like, hey, man, I know how to make CDs. Like, if you need CDs, like, I know how to ship stuff. I know how to build the internet page. I know how to make graphics. Like, because again, dude, I was doing all of that for Voice Reason or the distance. I was doing our shirts, our websites, our all of that shit, dude, out of necessity. Right. So just, that's why I tell everybody who's young, I'm like, yo, just like pay attention to everything. Cause I'm like, the shit you're doing now, you might be able to turn that into a job.
For sure.
There's always people looking for WordPress people. There's people looking for content creators. There's, dude, there's all kinds of shit that you're doing now. You don't even know you're doing it, that you could loop it into a job. So yeah, I mean, I'll just go a little more to fast track to get to Static Era, but like, so, Jive closes down. I'm obviously crushed. I'm bummed because I'm like, fuck, band didn't work out. I fucking Sony was only like a year. Like, what the fuck am I gonna do with myself? And I do it. I had moved into this new place to be closer to the city. Like, there's just all this shit was going wrong. End up finding a really shitty job, super unhappy, not music related, dude. Totally felt like I was like, okay, fuck, this sucks. I wasn't playing anything, felt like left out, and then luckily for me, dude, one of my friends who was at Sony like emailed me. I'm probably at this job for like 6 or 7 months. It's miserable. And he emails me. He's like, hey man, what are you doing? And I was like, and this is like I was telling you before, I never fucking say no. I never say anything. I'm just I'm like, yes, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? He's like, what are you working on? I was like, nothing. What do you got? And he's like, hey, want to come back to Sony? He's like, we need they call it a producer, but it's really like a project manager. He's like, yo, we need a producer. He's like, you'd be perfect for it. And I was like, I don't even know what the fuck that is. All right. But he was like, dude, trust me, you're doing it. So he's like, just come in. He's like, they're going to love you. Just come in, be yourself, whatever. So dude, I go in, meet these people at this beautiful Sony office. And I'm like, oh, it's a dream, Chris, at this point. Cause man, I'd love to be back. And dude, again, shout out to them that they just gave me a chance, dude. I didn't have like some beefy resume, but I told the guys, I was like, look, dude, I'm like, their whole thing was like making stuff and branding shit. So I was like, dude, I'm like, I got all these contacts because, we were touring. So I'm like, yo, if you need merch done, you need hats, you need toys, like, just all of the shit that you and I know how to do. These people, they don't know that stuff. So like stuff that you and I just think is common, oh, getting 100 shirts done, right? You and I could get 100 shirts done and no problem. Dude, there's people that they wouldn't even fucking know that you needed screens or all that. So again, dude, it's like when I tell all these young kids that come in the shop, it's like, dude, a lot of the shit you don't think about that you're doing, there are people who will pay you to do this shit. It's just packaging it in the right way, dude, and appealing it to the right thing. Like, so dude, so, whatever. I work at Sony until again, that division closes. That's almost 2 years. I do a bunch of agency shit. Because at that point, dude, the money's just like, you're kind of in this world where you're like, oh my God, I can make more doing that. And you're just like, you spiral into this thing of making money, but like everything sucks. People are yelling at you. You're just like, and then you're not even working on music. You're like working on like I was doing like experiential marketing, which was like, it was cool because like got to work with like the Special Olympics, which was like some of the best
Cool.
people ever, like in LA for a Google installation. So I was doing like these crazy projects that are like amazing, but it wasn't, it wasn't what I wanted. So my logic was kind of working backwards. I was like, okay, man, I'm like, if I could get a couple clients for myself and kind of just get what I need to survive. That was my whole thing. Like, can I pay the rent, eat, do this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, if I can do that, I'm like, I can quit my job and kind of make it work. So dude, luckily for me, man, I found a couple like music dudes that just had a volume of stuff and they didn't know how to get stuff going. And yeah, man, like shout out to that for like, dude, I haven't worked what I call like a real job in, close to probably 8 or 9 years. And that's all built on hardcore, man, if you could believe that. So I know it took a long time to get there, but I just wanted to give people like an idea of like, man, I had to do a lot of different shit to finally kind of just come back and be like, let me like do this for myself instead of making money for like everybody else. Because again, man, I'd go work at like these agencies and it'd be like a small agency, dude. Chris, it'd be like you, me, and like 5 other people, right? And it was really just like, okay, it's one dude. They've got this one big client that covers this giant nut. And then they got all these little things that kind of pay the staff and do that shit. So I was like, yo, if I could replicate that instead of, bringing clients to these people and they're not giving me shit for it. Because again, dude, some of my clients, I'm giving them the best vendors I have, dude, manufacturers, all this shit that are totally vetted that aren't going to fuck us over. Like, that's when I kind of started understanding the worth of like, oh, fuck, like, okay, this shit is important. Like, maybe it's not like, maybe I'm not wording it on my resume correctly. But dude, now you got fucking Chat GPT. A hardcore kid could type all this shit in and they would make the resume for you. This is what I tell kids all the time, man. I'm like, there's so many aspects in music too, that like, yeah, man, everybody wants to be the guy on the stage, right? We're not going to front like that's not the most appealing part. But dude, there's so much shit you could do. There's publishing, there's booking agents, there's talent booking, there's so many different things. You could do a label, you could do a fanzine, you could do like all of this shit, dude. That like, man, again, it's just like being open, I think, to coming up with other shit and not just being sold on like, yo, I got to be the front guy and we got to be the next big thing and like this, that, the third.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's all. And I think it's very important to hear that story, like I said before to you, because very rarely do you see someone with a record label. Just there has to be different paths and roads you take in order to get there. You need those experiences because think of all those experiences. It's like you're doing this, you're running this label now. It's like you've kind of been there, done that. I mean, there's probably not a lot of things that you're faced with, other than obviously there's new platforms now than when we were younger, but it's just a new platform to learn. It's the experiences that drive you there. So I think that's very important to hear that. Now another
Yeah, and I
thing,
think.
yep, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say,
No,
like, I think too with Static Era, man. I think that's why Static Era is so different from any of the other labels I've done. We don't really do hardcore per se. I love hardcore. We have like two hardcore
yeah,
bands,
like I was gonna say, you guys
and
have like a shitload of bands with different sounds, and
yeah,
it's
like and you know what it
awesome.
is, man. Is like
Thing.
to your point is like, dude. I feel like with Stillborn, what Joss and I accomplished there was I kind of like did that already. Like I already, dude, me and Joss accomplished a hardcore label when there was no streaming, there was none of these things, and we had a very successful label. And it was. I look back at that stuff so like, dude, those are the best times of my life. But when it came time to do something like Static Era, dude, I was telling you quickly about War God with Ryan and my other best friend Mark. The three of us kind of got together. We started reissuing vinyl. So the first thing we did was In This Moment record. We've done Eve Six, Fuel, Stabbing Westwards. We do a lot of like grunge stuff. I have a fucking awesome, super awesome hardcore title that I can't announce yet, but it'll be out soon. Like this one is like I can't even fucking believe we did it. It's legendary, dude. It's
Cool.
I'll say that I'll vaguely say it's from a VHS, Chris, that you and I know fucking very well. That's all I'll say. Just a
Okay.
VHS that you and I know very well. That kids,
Okay.
just that's all I'm gonna say. You know the VHS.
I
So
do.
we're fine. We're releasing that. I've been working with that whole crew, which has just been, again, dude, as a kid, talking and working with some of these people and legends, dude, is awesome. So, we started, again, I worked at Sony when I got laid off the second time and was trying to work my way back home, quote unquote, to Connecticut, to just be like in Connecticut full time and not have to like have a job. I remember putting up like kind of like almost like a vision board type thing, and I had two little tacks, and one of them was like, okay, start a reissue label. So because vinyl was always something I loved the process, doing things, and I had worked at Sony, like I mentioned. So I like was really lucky, dude, to make friends with people in the licensing department, and we've released some of their fucking huge titles from there, dude. Both Fuel records, both Stabbing Westward records, Eve Six records, a bunch of soundtracks. We've done some cool, we did the score to Godfathers of Hardcore, which was Ian McFarlane's Agnostic Front film. So I kind of like, we treat everything like reissues or like, kind of stuff like that's on War God. And then I really do genuinely just missed working with new bands. And what happened was I wanted to start a new label, and Andrew from Comeback Kid has a band called Sights and Sounds, and that was our first release. Like I mean, Andrew were just talking, and he was like, "Yo, I need a U.S. label," because the label that was supposed to do it wasn't going to do it. And I was like, all right, give me like a couple weeks, dude. And I just kind of went knocking on doors, and man, shout out to like our partner Monarch. Like I kind of went to them with this crazy idea of starting a label, and they had my back, dude. So we went and signed, Sights and Sounds, Cruel Hand, just kind of like reached out to the homies. I was like, yo, who wants to record, kind of thing. Um, and yeah, like Static Air is always a label first. I know people might know us from the store just because that kind of like, especially during the pandemic, kind of like overshadowed a lot of what we did. But Static Air is always a label first. I always make sure people understand that. It's my passion, dude. It's nothing beats, dude, putting something out or watching a band. Like I always mention Intrusive, who's one of the young bands, a hardcore band on our label from Connecticut. But like, dude, like Wes, shout out to Wes again from Death Threat. He put them on to open this most recent Death Threat show, kind of giving them a really big spot to open up. And man, older people were so receptive to them, and young kids love them. And it's like, man, watching that, dude, it's like the feeling of like when you were our age, like when it was your age watching that
Yeah.
show. And it's just cool, dude. I fucking love that because again, dude, so many people helped me that if that's all it takes, Chris, to make somebody happy, I'll put out your CD. I'll
That's cool.
fucking put you on a show, right, dude? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you help everybody if you could? You
Right.
know?
Yeah. You've always been that way. As long as again, yeah, you've always been that way as long as I've known you. And
No, and dude, that's the real me. Like, there's no like, I know, there's a lot of shit all the time you see with people. Like, dude, bro, I mean, you know this. I'm the same person I've been forever, almost to a fault sometimes. But like, man, I get by and I'm good. I'm happy with how everything is.
it's awesome. You talk your record store. You've always been your record store now, but you've always been part of, owned, or helped running a record store. I remember was the Hanover House, the record store that was up the road. I remember
Well,
was it
yeah,
Hanover
Josta
House
used,
or
yeah, no, Josta had a little store called Subterranean for a little while. It was like a record store. Yes, I helped
that
him
was like
out
right up the
there.
road there.
It
Yeah,
was like right in Wallingford. Yep.
I
Yeah.
remember we'd show up, play, we get there so early, we just walk down, hang out at the
Yeah,
record store.
that's cool. Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then like dragging a box of shirts that you guys like nicely printed for us on Stillborn, it was awesome. I'll never
Yeah.
forget that. But
Yeah,
a lot
man,
of
those
us
were
did
the
that.
days.
No, it was hilarious. It was awesome, and it was like an unexpected gift that we got that day. It was very nice.
Yeah, no, that it was cool.
But let's talk about your record store. So you've always
Yeah, man.
wanted to do that, and it's blown up. You have, we were talking before this. Yeah, Standstill, come on.
Yeah,
They
we've had
will. I
some
had Matt on
crazy.
from Standstill the other
Yeah,
day.
I love Standstill, man. We've had Man Overboard play. We've had
Okay.
Standstill. We've had Cinema Stare, who's on our label. Who shout out to them? They're an amazing band. Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Like, I'll say this, dude. I didn't always want a store. Like, if you would have said to me when we started Static Air that we'd have a retail store, I would have been like, no fucking way. But this is what happened. And it's funny because, dude, Chris, like, I was listening on the news today, and just this will frame it up for everybody. So they were saying like March, whatever, the 10th or whatever was like the start of COVID. So it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
So, dude, like, think about this. Like, Static Air is about to turn 5 years old. So, like, yo, I leased this place in April, May, June, July. Dude, 4 months into the pandemic.
Oh my God.
I decided. So listen, but this was my logic. So I don't know if some people probably have been to the store, but I would say it's very similar, like, to people from your area. It's like Port Jeff. It's a coastal town. It's a vacation kind of thing. It's really like walkable. It's super nice, like the whole thing, right? So I live a couple buildings away, and so I'm on we're Static Era is going. I start Static Era in 2019. Sights and Sounds comes out, and then the second. Yeah, so it's like the end of 2019 going into 2020, right? So like I think the Sights and Sounds comes out like September or October in that area. Then my next record that's supposed to come out is a band called, I have a couple of digital singles, but the next like physical record that's supposed to come out is a band from Brooklyn called Husbandry, who, if you haven't listened to them, you guys should check them out. It'd be a fucking amazing band from Brooklyn. So they're my second record, right? And we're all hyped up. Vinyl looks beautiful. The band is so excited. Everybody's excited. I'm excited because dude, got my second record out. Cruel Hand's gonna go in the studio soon. Like, yo, label's looking fucking great. I'm excited. And Husbandry books their record release show. I think it was supposed to be at Vitus, which they played pretty often. And we're psyched. And then all of a sudden, everything starts kind of getting canceled. No more shows, no more this, no more that. And then, dude, like, between you and me and everybody else who's listening, I start freaking the fuck out because I'm like, fuck, I literally just started a fucking label.
Yeah.
I just fucking put in a lot of money to start it, dude. Because again, dude, we're putting out ads, I'm signing bands, and dude, we're recording with Zeus. We're not doing shit on the cheap, dude. I'm doing, how I am. So I'm like, I want to have everything right, so I'm spending a lot of money to do it. I get the fucking Husbandry records, and they're like, yo, no shows. So, dude, I'm sitting on fucking 100 something records. I think we pressed 300. I'm sitting on like 100 something of them at this time, probably 200. And I'm like, fuck, I start freaking out a little bit. I have War God, who's so I'm reissuing stuff on that. Static Era is going. So the one consistent thing is like, okay, there's vinyl coming out. Vinyl hasn't stopped being pressed yet, even though people can't work. So it was like this weird kind of thing where I was like, fuck, there's no shows. I'm like, am I even going to be able to have a band play again? Like, dude, I didn't fucking know. Like, no one
At that
knew,
point,
right?
you had no idea.
I mean, dude, even when Cruel Hand goes to record with Zeus, right, in the studio, I remember us having to do it so secretly because Zeus and I were just so concerned that somebody would see us in the studio, or somebody was going to ask like, "Hey, how did you get new music done when no one's supposed to be recording?" Like all because we released the Cruel Hand thing like right at the time, like like right in the middle of the pandemic when it's like studios weren't, so I was like worried about a lot of shit or whatever. But so husbandry pretty much, they shut down venues, they shut all this shit down. And where Static Era is now was a kids clothing store. So like if you're walking to like right into the downtown, this is kind of like the first area you see as you walk into downtown. So again, dude, I was telling you I used to work in the city. So the train station's right across the street from where I live, and the store it's like right there. So I'd always walk down there, and then one day, dude, she was just gone, and I was like, "Fuck!" I'm like, man, this would be cool to like, because again, dude, the area down here just prior to the pandemic, like there was never an empty storefront. You could never rent. Again, dude, picture like Port Jeff, like picture trying to rent something in Port Jeff. Like it would have been like, what? There's nothing available, or if there was, the rents are like here, like you just would have never been able to get into it. And man, shout out to my landlord, Buddy Preet. He's a good guy. Ultimate Flooring in Connecticut. If you need floors, go to him. He just there was a number on it. It was gone, and I gave him a call, and I just kind of gave him a little pitch of like, hey man, I work in this industry. I'm like, I'd love to just see what you'd have, you'd want to do. And we met, and he was super cool, and he was just like, okay, here's the rent. He's like, I gotta warn you though. He's like, I don't know if this is gonna work or whatever. He's like, everything is closing. And I mean, Chris, everybody told me I was crazy. I think everybody might have thought I was like on drugs, to be totally honest. Like, and looking back at it now, like again, when I look at like when the news put the time frame of it being 5 years, it really framed me up that I was like, well, it really framed me up that I was like, fuck, did I really do it that close to the pandemic starting, like 4 months in, when people were like, no wonder everybody was like, dude, what are you doing? But dude, to my true testament of like just sticking to my guns and what I said to before, like, I saw an opportunity and I was like, okay, the rent isn't that bad. I think I could make this work. If I could serve, my logic was like, oh, if I could serve like 20 hardcore kids, I could afford this kind of like, I was like, okay, if this kid comes in here and I could buy these things, and then like, shout out to labels like Days and Triple B, who were getting me product and just making sure we were stocked. So like, kids still had a way to get music. Like if they, like it was really cool, man. So like the first like year and a half or 2 years, dude, in the pandemic was like, man, am I really going to do this? So it was just more out of necessity, dude. Like looking back, I don't know, like, if things weren't perfect, I don't think I would have opened the store. I would have just done the label and continued to like, I would have sunk all the money I had in that into just putting out stuff, But so now as like, obviously shit's over and whatever, we've now kind of trying to get everything back on track. So we have 2 Instagrams. Like one is Static Era Milford, which is just for the store. So like we do a lot of listening parties and record store day and all these fun things. And then we have Static Era Records, which is like the main kind of profile. That's the one that I run. So there is a little like overlap still. I'm trying to kind of get out of that, but we still have a lot of people that haven't moved over to the new profile. But yeah, man, like I want to really get back to just the label being its thing. The store runs itself. Like I said, man, I got two great people, Austin and Doug, who run the shop, and like they don't even need me there, dude. I always joke and say it's Austin's store because he just does such a great job with everything there, So yeah, dude, like it's just now we got some really crazy signings for this year that I can't wait to announce. And man, I try to be selective. We don't work on a lot of stuff, dude. We just put out Tim from VOD's new project. I've been working with Tim for the past couple of years on Rolling Coffin, which if you're a VOD fan, especially if you're like from Bliss to Devastation era VOD fan, where he does a lot of singing, like you'll love the stuff we're doing. We just did a track with Machine, who produced that album, and that's doing really well at radio. It debuted.
This song that just dropped is really good. It's catchy.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Really
yeah, it's catchy. Great, dude. Yeah, it debuted top 5 on college radio and metal radio, which is sick. And yeah, man, working with Tim again, dude, just it's one of those things where like as a kid, Tim and I were friends. Like I had VOD. At my mom cooked dinner for VOD and shit, so like, dude, just still being friends with him and seeing, like I went out to see VOD and they're doing their thing at Paramount coming up. But like, yeah, man, like, dude, just working with people like that, it's like fuck, man, I'm just, again, dude, young me would be so excited about everything that we've got to accomplish and do,
Yeah, it's awesome, man. The label's great. And the store,
Thank you.
the record store, it's killing, is killing it too. I got to get up there. Yeah,
Yeah, please do, man. No, we got your record there too. Like I said, man, I had
cool.
Race bring it right up personally, so I was excited, man. Yeah, I love the story. You know, like I said, I'm really excited to get the label back on track. We've got some great bands. I mean, it's not that we don't do hardcore per se. It's just that there are so many labels, you know, like Days and Triple B and Closed Casket, who just do such a fucking excellent job in
Yeah.
that space, man. That like, man, on my best day, I couldn't be those guys. So I want to kind of fill in a little bit of a different place, you know, and just kind of, yeah, man, do my thing there. And like I said, we've got some really great bands that people are open. We have a couple hardcore bands, don't get me wrong. I mean, and we've reissued a ton of cool stuff like Fast Break and Dismay and Cornerstone. But yeah, man, like I would say, like definitely listen to Split View, who's amazing. Cinema Stare, if you like pop punk stuff. Intrusive and Mercy Whip, who are like my two young hardcore bands. They're like the next generation of Connecticut hardcore that I think our listeners our age would really, really enjoy. We've got Cloned Apparition, Rolling Coffin. We've got Hard Target out of Mass. Yeah, we got. I'm sure I'm forgetting some people. Husbandry, like I said. But yeah, man, we've just been lucky to work with a lot of like-minded people, Chris, and that's my main thing, dude. I kind of tend to work with people I want to work with more so if the music's my thing. I'm like I'm investing in the person, and a lot of like the younger kids we
Of
work with.
course.
That's my thing.
Cool. And you got and every band you mentioned, obviously, completely different contrast of styles, which
Oh
actually
yeah, dude. Yeah, it's
makes
like
the label.
ADD. Yeah, it's like ADD.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Chris, like one of my favorite labels is Pure Noise, and I
Yeah.
feel like they kind of do a really good job at that. So in a lot of ways, like, you know, I would love to be a label like that. I think they do such a great job over there, and just yeah, man, like that's what I would
They
really
do,
love
right? They
to
do Crime
see.
and Stereo. Well, it's not new anymore. That the House of
Oh, but they
Trance,
did
Crime and
that. They
Stereo
got
is sick.
Warriors, they got Terror, and then on the
Yeah.
opposite side, they got like Story So Far. Like they just have such a great variety, and I think
Yeah.
they just do such a great job with stuff. Like, yeah, that's one of the labels I would say that we try to like, um, you know, we would try to be like.
Well, you are there.
Yeah,
So
thank you, brother. We will get there.
no, you are there. So what I want to have now is I have a bunch of questions. I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you.
I'm sorry I talked for so long, guys.
No, this is
You know, I
perfect.
could,
It's a great.
I fucking could ramble forever, especially when I'm talking to Chris, you know?
Not at all, man. Great stories. But here's first thing that comes to mind. These are just
All
a
right.
list of questions that I'll come up with. So, okay, running a label or performing?
Oof. Running a label.
Okay.
Actually, but if you ask me tomorrow, I might say performing, but
Oh,
I'm gonna stick with, I'm
you're
gonna
gonna
say
text me tomorrow.
running.
Can we change that?
Yeah. Yeah. Running a
Favorite
label.
tour you went on with Voice of Reason or The Distance? Like, what was the best
I'm
tour?
gonna say the distance. This is my, just because I could not believe that we played with these bands every day. So this was a tour in Europe. I'll start from the top. Sick of It All, Madball, Comeback Kid, Walls of Jericho. Oh, us. Who am I forgetting on that? Oh, and Terror. How could I fucking forget Terror?
Wow,
So yeah, Sick of It All, Madball, Terror, Comeback Kid, Walls of Jericho, and us in Europe on a bus. Amazing.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Your favorite? You actually mentioned your the favorite Distance release before.
Yeah.
But what's your favorite Voice of Reason release?
Probably the voice, the Victory Records comp song for sure. Like I just love that song. That was the first time we worked with Jamie in the studio. Again, I feel like I've shouted out Wes from Death Threat so many times, but Wes from Death Threat is the dude who came up with the "I love you"
Oh,
right there, and then Josta turned it into the gang vocal. So like they made that part the best part of the song. So yeah,
cool.
that for sure.
Really good song. Your favorite older Connecticut venue from
Oh,
back in the day?
tune in for sure. Tune in for
It
sure.
was a cool spot. It
Yeah,
was.
the best. And that was, like I said, that's where I got exposed to like everything. Second runner up would definitely be like, I think you mentioned the Hanover House, but that's for like a whole
That's
different
my
sort of
selfish
reason.
memory. We played there a lot with, so
Yeah, and I would say like in a lot of ways, dude, again, if you ask me tomorrow, like so many of those are my favorite because again, booked so many of my friends' bands there, saw so many amazing. I mean, dude, Josta brought SOD and Converge on the same show in that room. So like just think about that. You know, there's video of that.
your favorite Long Island show as a band.
Oh, dude, playing with you guys at Deja One when the day that we signed the contracts with Fred.
Okay, cool. Was
Yeah,
that
that was
Indecision
like
on
that.
that?
Oh shit, what? Oh, maybe you're right. You know what's funny, dude, is
Yeah,
like,
I think it was
yo,
Indecision, us and you guys. Yeah.
I try to find like the flyers of like Deja One. I only have one. I've only seen one online because for the longest time I couldn't remember where Deja One was. But yeah, I mean, dude, anytime with that, or I'll say like another one of my favorite memories, dude, was when we played with you guys at Coney Island High.
Oh, Fahrenheit and
Yeah.
Night and
Ignite.
Indecision.
Yeah. That shit was
That was
sick, dude.
that show was awesome.
Yeah.
Jamie hooked that one up, right? He set that one up.
Yeah, well, it was funny because we did that whole weekend with Ignite minus one show, because the venue was like they didn't want us on it for whatever. I think probably because they didn't want us forced on every fucking show. But yeah, we played with those again, dude. We were so I never say luck, dude, because I don't really believe in lucky, man. But like, just dude, I mean, whatever you believe in, like, man, I just that to be around all. I mean, dude, we played with everybody, Chris. Between the Distance and Voice Reason, dude, we play with everybody, dude.
Which is
Every
cool.
band I could have ever wanted to play with, dude. Gorilla Biscuit, fucking Sicko. I mean, dude, got to tour with Sicko. Got to tour with Madball. Got to tour with Comeback Kid. Like, dude, got to play fucking New Year's Eve with Glassjaw and Hatebreed in Connecticut. Like, oh my god, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, come on, you know?
it's a great show. Yeah, and that Voice of Reason show, Coney Island High, is online. Go watch it.
Yeah,
On
that's one of
YouTube.
my favorite memories, man. I'm so happy too because, like I said, dude, like back then, not a lot of shit was on there, and like one of the first things you sent me was that clip when you digitized, and I was like, and again, because in your head, you don't, I don't remember that, and then when I see it, I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like we opened with the Gorilla Biscuits cover, and
Yeah.
just ah man, it was cool.
The quality is because my tape quality was bad. It looks like we're
It
playing
looks,
on the
dude.
moon.
I
But
don't. You know what, dude?
it's
I
that
love it.
time,
Like
you know?
I love it like that. To me, it makes it look fucking cooler.
So, so your favorite show that you went to? It's probably a bunch, but
You know what? I'm gonna say this. I'm just gonna give you one period because it kind of captures the whole thing. I'll
sure.
say like summer of 2002. I get to go with Hatebreed on Ozfest for the whole summer.
Man.
That lineup was fucking sick because on our stage was obviously Hatebreed and Down was co-headlining, but you had Glassjaw was out that year. The Used was on that year. Andrew WK was on that year. It was just a crazy year, and then the main stage was like POD and like all these crazy bands, and just dude, you're hanging out with everybody. So like, I'm sure I have a favorite show if I had more time to think about it, but that just to me, dude, when you mentioned that, that's where my brain goes. It's
Reminds you
just
of
like
that.
that period, yeah.
Top 3 albums of all time.
Oof.
Your favorite.
Hardcore or just in general?
In general, to make it even more confusing.
All right, definitely Skid Row self-titled. That's like the record that got
Mm.
me into music. I like got it on cassette as a kid. Like could sing it. I People hate me when I work at the shop because it's the only record I play. I'm not exaggerating. So I love that record to death. I gotta say Hatebreed Satisfaction only because of like so much dude, like how much it meant to me and what I was around at that time. And then a third record, fuck man. Yeah, you stumped me, dude. Good. Go to the next one and I'll come back to that. That's a good one. I'm stumped on the third for right now.
So a release that you put out on Static Era that you're most proud of. Now I'm sure you're proud about everything, but like the
I was
one
gonna
that's
say
sort of,
probably to me, dude. Honestly, like, and I love all my guys, all my and lady, all my ladies, and then on Static Era. No, I love everything we put out, but to me, probably Rolling Coffin, just working with Tim, BOD, being trusted by somebody that you look up to release this project, and I would just say, man, like to me that's been the most probably rewarding of like all the projects, just because again, man, young me would have been like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing, you know? So like, yeah, working with Tim is like insane.
cool. And you have more to come with that, obviously, too, right? So,
Yeah.
all right. So you pick between these albums here. So I know you're a Glassjaw fan. Everything you ever wanted to know about Silence or Worship and Tribute?
Why are you doing that one to me? Uh Man, I gotta just go with everything you want to know about Silence only because, dude, like to me, like again, the Glassjaw stand, like the Don Fury demo just recently got released, so that the fact that that's available as a real thing is like mind blowing to me because we used to listen to those MP3s like crazy, and I had Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, like yeah, I love that record. I love like Beck's guitar playing, Daryl's voice is amazing. So I got to stick with the first one only because that's just yeah, man, Long Island, those shows going, oh my God, dude, Chris is just such a yeah.
Good
Merch
time, right?
now, being on merch now, like it's just yeah, dude, it was cool, man.
Cool. VOD, self-titled or imprint?
Oh, why are you doing that one to me? Self-titled for sure. Again, only because of the time and the place and the memory, man. I mean, I can remember driving to Phoenix Records probably like a week before the record came out. They had it, and I called, and drove my mom's car and lied and said, "Oh yeah, I'm only going here," and drove like 35 minutes to a record store in Waterbury called Phoenix Records and bought it on cassette
Hmm.
and CD. So cassette so I could listen
In
to
the
it in the
car.
car, and then CD so I had it at home. And yeah, man, definitely, yeah, the drip for sure.
The drip.
I mean, that's how I became friends with those guys. Like, I was working at Strawberries. I brought them in for an in-store. Yeah, like I said, dude, they had dinner at my parents' house, like that. Yeah, the drip for sure. Just the memories of that record are crazy.
Now, for the next one, I did have a different album here, but I'm going to change it because of what you
All right.
just said in your top three. So
Okay.
I'm going to go Perseverance or The Rise of Brutality.
Ooh. See, that's a tough one for me. So I would normally say like, oh, Rise Brutality because I did the artwork and there's like some hits. There's just like a lot of behind the scenes stories with trying to get that done and this, that, third. But I'm gonna say Perseverance again, just because, dude, the memories I have of working on that record with Josta, getting like, especially lately, dude, because that record just turned 23 years old the other
That's
day.
crazy.
Um, I was telling like how like, I mean, and you know this because you worked with Josta too. It was like he would just be like, yo, find every fanzine. I don't care if it's something with 10 copies or the biggest one and take an ad out in it. And I just remember, dude, for Perseverance, literally finding every kid who emailed me, every fucking letter that came in Stillborn that was like, want to take an ad in our zine? I was like, yes, here's the ad, here's the money. Yes, yes, yes. Dude, just like that era. And again, man, just watching a dude become a fucking master of like, you know what I mean? Dude, again, like I was lucky enough to kind of meet this person like before he became what he is, So like, dude, watching this happen and just, dude, absorbing it all in and learning and dude, again, just him being so generous with his time and connections and everything, man. It was is a lot of reasons why today, dude, like when you said that, it's just like, man, I got time for everybody. Because if a dude that busy had time to fucking show me, I sure as fuck got 5 minutes for
Mhm.
somebody, man.
Awesome. Couple more, man, then we'll wrap it up
No,
here.
no, yeah, for sure, dude.
Yeah,
I'm
a
having a
couple more.
blast. I'm
No, a
sorry. I
couple
feel like
more.
I feel like I've been babbling, but I
No,
love
this
it.
is it's a great conversation, man. What did you listen to last?
You know what? Let me look at my Spotify. I'll tell you right now.
You
It's
know what's funny too?
probably
I asked that question. 90% of the people have to look back. I would have to too.
the last record. Actually, you know what? I want to shout this record out because I really love it. Is the new Anxious record, Bambi,
Okay.
Connecticut band. Coolest band. They were like a lot of ways remind me of almost like a fast break kind of ish band that they like started kind of youth career a little fast and have matured into this kind of like more rockinish sound. But yeah, Bambi, dude, I was just listening to that on the way home.
Good. Last one here, man. A band you like that may, or artist, a band or artist that you like that may surprise people.
Well, I don't know if a lot of people know that I'm Cuban, so I do listen to a lot of Spanish music. So maybe
Okay.
that might kind of like I fucking love all the Spanish pop stuff, so like Bad Bunny and stuff. But then like there's a lot of old shit like growing up that played, so I listen to a lot of that stuff, which that might throw some people through a loop because I don't think most people know that about me.
Cool. Jay, man, this is awesome. I appreciate you
Now,
coming on. The story, the label, the bands, all that kind of stuff, man.
yeah, no, dude, and Chris, man, likewise, brother. I'm so again, dude, I got to bring you to Connecticut. We were talking about that, so like, man, maybe when we do the distance 20-year show, you guys will come up for that and help us bring the party because that'd be a lot of fun.
It'd be awesome. And
Um,
before though that show, I definitely want to stop by the record store.
oh yeah,
So,
no, dude, come up, everybody. Yeah. Let
yeah,
me just plug a couple of things, man.
you
Follow
got
us
it.
at the
Go.
store. Like I said, Instagram, well, online, staticerarecords.com. You could check out all the shit that I mentioned, dude. You could listen to Tim's new stuff, check out Husbandry, check out all the cool new bands we're working with and doing stuff with. I got a shout out sidestep from Sweden. It was our first Swedish signing, and the record is amazing. So please check that out. I totally, it's on vinyl. Go on our site, but I totally, in listing everything, had forgotten to shout them out. But yeah, staticarerecords.com. If you're into just wanting to know about the store aspect, Static Era Milford on Instagram. That's just, again, it's all store shit. New records coming in, used collections. We buy a ton of shit. So, dude, anybody listening, if you're in the area, you need cash, please hit us up. I buy and pay the best in the area. Check the Google reviews. We're super easy to deal with and clean and the whole 9 yards. So you don't got to worry about it. Yeah, then just grab me online at JReason, pretty much anywhere. And if anybody needs help with anything, I always end all of these conversations just saying like, "Yo, reach out to me. I'm super happy to help everybody." Like I said, I literally got Don Fury's number by calling Revelation, so you could email me at JReason at staticerarecords.com, and I'll get back to you for sure.
Awesome, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Chris, thank you, man. I really, really appreciate you giving me time to talk and cheer you up about this stuff. Like I said, I don't do a lot of these things only because I try to save the babbling for when I'm with my friends, man. This has been so much fun, dude. So I really appreciate you giving me the time to talk.
For sure, man. Hang tight. I'm just going to end off here,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap up when I'm done.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you for listening to the What Lies Ahead podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. Go save the What Lies Ahead podcast playlist on Spotify that features all bands that were on the show. For more information on future episodes, you can go to my Instagram account and follow at What Lies Ahead _podcast and on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead podcast. See you on the next episode.
Hell yeah.
Let me just